if you can give like a quick introduction about yourself in case people, they don't know who you are.
Yeah, sure. Hello, I'm Jakub. I live in Japan currently. I'm here on the JET program teaching English, and I run a YouTube channel just under my name, Jakub planzz, which is about my experiences in Japan and on the JET program.
And where are you from? Like, where did you grow up originally?
So I'm from Edinburgh in Scotland. I
Yeah.
pretty much lived my whole life there, bar 6 months in Germany for a study abroad. Yeah, so I was with my parents the whole time, and then suddenly, spontaneously came here to live alone, which was something.
And so did you go to university in Edinburgh?
Yeah,
Yeah.
Edinburgh Napier.
Cool. What did you study?
So I studied digital media, and when I first joined the course, my intention was to go into like VFX for movies and stuff.
Yeah.
But the first 2 years were kind of like general, so you try a bit of this and that, and basically I learned that I don't like doing VFX, but I really enjoyed video editing, so that was kind of where my focus went down.
Cool. And then, so you're doing the JET program, right?
Mm.
So how did you learn about that in the first place?
Through a YouTuber very similar to me, actually. I used to work as a videographer at a small events company for a few years before I came here. And when I was kind of over that job, I didn't really know what to do next. And so I'd watch videos at work sometimes. And I came across this one channel, Courtney Coulson. She doesn't really make videos about Japan anymore, but at the time that was the focus of her channel. And she just seemed like she was having a fabulous time. And I was like, why not? So I just thought I'd apply. And actually, it was a coincidence. I got placed in the same prefecture as her, and we ended up becoming friends. So that was really
So you didn't actually know anybody when you went to Japan?
Not a single person. Well, actually, there was this really weird coincidence where, like, the year before, when I was in Edinburgh, I went on a random date with this Japanese guy, just from like one of the apps. Like, he was visiting Edinburgh,
Yeah.
and we kept in touch on like Instagram and stuff. And when you come to Japan on the JET program, you can't choose where you'll be. You could be in the middle of Tokyo, you could be in the middle of nowhere. And I got placed one station away from him in all of Japan. The only Japanese person I knew, I was placed like right next to him. I was like, oh, okay. But I didn't really like know him well or anything. So yeah, I do consider it as something I did alone.
Okay, cool. So then where were you placed exactly?
So I'm in Hyogo Prefecture, kind of like right in between Osaka and Kobe.
Okay, cool. Is it like a kind of a smallish town or a small?
It's a city, but it is very much just suburban for the most part. I never really go to the city center because it's actually just faster for me to get to Osaka. I actually love the placement because it's just so near so many big cities. I can also get to Kyoto in like under an hour. Nara's not too far away. Yeah, it's just like such a good placement. And because it's kind of quiet and not in any of those cities, it's really cheap as well. So that's good too.
And so how long have you been in Japan now?
I just passed 3 years in August, so it's
Oh,
been quite a
okay.
long time now.
Cool. So are you just like continuing on the JET program?
Yeah, so you can stay here on JET for a maximum of 5 years.
Yep.
And I was kind of over it after 3, to be honest. But then with the pandemic, I was like, I don't know what the job situation is going to be back in Scotland. And this is really easy money. So maybe I'll just stick out for another year.
Yeah. And how is your Japanese? Like, did you speak
Oh,
any? No.
no, I don't speak Japanese. So actually, before or just as I was applying, I took a weekly night course at Edinburgh University, just like a beginner's class, partly because I knew I could be placed anywhere, and I was worried if I was placed deep in the countryside, there'd be no English speakers, no signs with English or anything. And also it looks very good on the application if you're putting an effort to learn Japanese. It's not a requirement to speak Japanese, but certainly showing that you want to learn help. But then when I actually came here, and my particular placement, I'm actually in teachers accommodation. So there's a bunch of other JET program participants in my building. God, everything's in English. At work, I speak in English. Like, completely lost the motivation.
Yeah. And then what is your like what do you have to do for your job? Like what are the main responsibilities?
Sure. So it definitely varies from ALT to ALT. That's assistant language teacher, which is the
Yeah.
official title you have. But you're definitely not an assistant when you have your classes. Like I run my classes. So I work at a senior high school, which is 15 to 17 or 18-year-old. And I'm given all of the first years once a week. And I usually have one optional third year class as well. So with the first years, it's like 14 classes of 20 students a week.
Mm.
And the third years, usually it was like less than 10 kids because it's optional. And that was twice a week. Although this year no one chose it. So I've got a lot more free time, which is great. But apart from that, truly, I have very little responsibility personally. I completely make up all my lesson plans and materials and everything for those classes, which is really difficult in the first year because I'd had no teaching experience and they were kind of just like, okay, do what you want. And I'm like, I don't know. Like I didn't know what level the English kids had. I didn't know what they'd covered before or anything. So definitely the first year was a very steep learning curve. Then after like 2 years and definitely now in my fourth year, I know what works, what doesn't, and I can just reuse lesson plans a lot more. Occasionally, the Japanese English teachers will ask me to like grade some student work. Once a year, there's an English speech contest. So if anyone enters that, I kind of help them out. And I run the English club, which meets like almost never because there's
Yeah.
only 2 members. So it's like if they can be bothered coming, then I'll hang out with them for a bit once a week. But yeah, for the most part, I literally just teach my classes and that's it. But certainly I've heard of a lot of ALTs that are super overworked and stuff, but that's usually at the really high level schools where there's a lot of pressure. Mine's very like mid to low level.
Okay, cool. And like what's the daily schedule? Like what are your like when do you have to
Mm.
go and get there? When do you go home? That
Sure. So my start time is 8:20 and my end time is 4:05. So it's pretty good.
Mhm.
And usually I have about 3 or 4 classes a day. It varies. Sometimes I've got a couple days filled with classes and a couple really empty days. Basically, in my free lessons, I'll plan the next week's lesson, make all the materials and stuff. On Thursdays, I meet with all of the teachers that I work with and go over my lesson plan, make sure they approve of it and stuff. They can help me out if there's some Japanese on the worksheets because I know I'm not going to get that right and stuff like that. But yeah, it's pretty chill. I think this year especially, it's a lot more chill. In the first 2 years, it took me a long time to come up with a lesson. So every free moment I was using to think of the next plan. Whereas now I can think of a lesson fairly quickly. So I'm just chilling in a lot of my free periods, get a coffee, YouTube.
So with the lessons, is it like do you have to teach them or is it more like they just do their work and then you're just like there?
Varies on the lesson. I think in more recent years, I've gravitated towards more project-based stuff,
Yeah.
so that there are lessons where I can just be like, okay, get on with your
Yeah.
project. I'll come help you if you need it. But in my first year, because I had no idea what I was doing, I did a completely different topic each week. Everything was a standalone lesson. I feel like it didn't work well. They didn't really take anything in because we didn't do much reviewing once we moved on and stuff, and it was a bit chaotic. But with the project-based stuff, I can plan a whole bunch of lessons at once generally, and then just work out the specifics each week for that class. So much easier. So yeah, usually in like the first lesson of a project, it's much more me being hands-on and stuff and explaining things and everything. The middle classes will be like, get on with it, and then in the last lesson, usually there'll be some kind of presentation or something, play some games with them to like finish it off. And I'll do like a Halloween lesson and a Christmas lesson and stuff.
Cool. Is there any like major differences you find between like schools in Japan versus like Scotland?
Oh my God, they are
Yeah.
wildly different, wildly different. So I don't, sorry, where are you from? Sorry.
I'm in New Zealand.
New Zealand, okay.
Yeah.
So I don't know the school system in New Zealand, but in Scotland, we've got primary school
Yeah.
for 7 years and then just 6 years of high school. And the last few years of high school are optional. All of the high schools, you kind of just, unless you pay to go to private school, then you just go to your local high school.
Yeah.
In Japan, after junior high school, senior high school is optional and they take entrance exams for the ones they want to go to, because basically certain high schools are better than others, or higher level, or specialize in certain things. So there's so much pressure on the kids for these entrance exams. And I have one kid, oh my god, honestly breaks my heart. He loves English. He wants to speak English so badly, but he failed the entrance exam for the school, the international school that's really well known. So now he's at my school, and like I can help him as much as I can, but my classes are way too easy for him and he's just not learning much, and I feel so bad for him. But on top of that, they're so test heavy. Always tests, always a right answer. Also, club activities are a huge thing. Everyone's involved in some kind of club activity, which are taken very seriously. They're like everyday practice and stuff. Completely different world in terms of schools here compared to there back
Yeah.
home.
I guess it's like a cultural thing as well. Like
Oh, for
life
sure,
in
for sure.
general is probably just completely different.
Yeah, I think that even from high school, they're encouraged to adopt the mindset of for the good of the group rather than trying to stand out as an individual, which is very much Japanese culture. So I think that's partly why club activities are so important. They want them to do lots of things as a team where they're not going to be just one person shining out above everyone else.
Have you had any like chances to travel? Like, is there holidays and stuff?
Oh, for sure. In my first 2 years, I ended up traveling outside of Japan a lot, actually, because my original plan was to use Japan as kind of like a hub to explore Asia. So I went to Korea a few times, love Korea. I went to Taiwan, which was great. And then the pandemic happened, so I
Yeah.
didn't travel internationally as much. But after things started to ease up a bit, I did explore a lot more of Japan after that. So, oh my God, I'll try and fire off a few places in Japan I've been. So I've been to Tokyo a lot. I love Tokyo. It's very hit and miss though with people. Like some people are not a fan of Tokyo. I've been to
Mm.
Fukuoka, Nara, Hiroshima, Shimane, Nagano, Matsumoto, Shiga, Shirahama, Okinawa. Oh my god, if you like beaches, you've got to go to Okinawa. It is phenomenal. But then that's me saying that as a Scottish person. We have awful beaches. So for me, it was like, whoa. Yeah, so I've had a mix of like countryside and urban
Yeah,
experiences.
cool. And do you need like a car or anything? Like, how do you get around?
So traveling from like city to city or town to town is pretty easy with the public transport. It's really good. Like there's always trains or like a night bus or something you can get. But if you're gonna go to a more rural area and you want to like deeply explore it, you do need someone who can drive. So yeah, I've definitely visited more cities than rural areas. And that's just going to be luck if you happen to become friends with someone who can drive, or if you yourself can drive or something. But you certainly don't need a car to explore it. I think that if you yourself are placed in the countryside, it's definitely beneficial to know how to drive so you can see
Mm.
more of your own area since you have to spend so much time there. But as for me, who's fairly urban, I like don't ever feel the need for a car.
Cool, nice. And I was just wondering if we could just talk about your YouTube channel for a bit.
Oh yeah,
So
sure.
yeah, so why did you like want to start YouTube and make videos?
So initially, because I used to work as a videographer and
Yeah.
I do want to go back to that in the future, so I didn't want to lose my editing skill basically. And I knew if I didn't have some kind of something to motivate me to keep practicing with a strict schedule and stuff, that I just wouldn't do it. So I started that up. And also I just love to record memories and stuff. So I
Yeah.
knew it'd be like a really nice way to record all my traveling. And also just because watching jet YouTubers helped me so much when I was applying, I thought it'd be nice to kind of give back as well, which is definitely something I talked about a lot in my application and interview. But I did mean it genuinely. So initially, when I started the channel, there was a lot of travel vlogs and first experiences and stuff. But then as time went on, I got into more of a routine and I was just home all the time. So it's kind of difficult to maintain that. So I started to gear more towards just advice for people looking to apply to the JET program, like interview tips. You have to write like a personal statement as part of the applications, like advice for that. Top 10 things I hate about Japan and all those like typical kind of YouTuber
Yeah,
things.
yeah.
I kind of just make it up week by week, to be honest. Sometimes I have a very clear image in my mind of something I really want to do. And other weeks I'm like, oh, okay, what am I gonna do? Because I decided it's going to be like once a week, and I am
Yep.
very strict with that because I'm the kind of person where I miss it once just because I can't be bothered, and then it's going to be all the time. Yeah, and I mean, I've never been in it for the like the views and the subscribers and stuff
Yeah.
because I don't imagine I would continue the channel beyond Jet, but it's grown a little bit over the 3 years, and it is always just so nice to read comments from people who find the videos helpful, or they say, oh, I got into Jet after watching your videos and stuff, and that in itself is like a motivation to keep going as well, because that is it's just such a like a nice feeling.
Cool. I was
Yeah.
actually gonna ask earlier. I was curious about the food in Japan. Like, what do you
Oh,
normally
I
eat? Like on a
uh on like just an average day.
yeah, probably.
Oh
Yeah.
my God, I'm so boring. Because in the last year I went on like a massive health kick.
Yeah.
So pretty much 90% of the week for dinner, it's like chicken and broccoli and maybe some pasta or rice or something. Breakfast, I'll just grab something from the convenience store on the way to work, or if I'm
Yeah.
off, I'll have some eggs. And lunch probably a bit more interesting. You like at my school, you can order little bento boxes through the
Okay.
office in the morning, and they'll put in like a big order. So I can mix that up a bit depending on the menu. Sometimes there's like some seasonal stuff, but usually I go for some kind of chicken and rice thing. But when I go out to eat, I love okonomiyaki, which is like very Osaka food. It's kind of like a
Okay.
savory pancake. I mean, I love sushi. Like, oh my God, who doesn't love sushi? Come on. I love, oh my God, I discovered unagi, which is eel. And you
Okay.
can have that as like a rice bowl or also a sushi. And that is just like my favorite food ever, but it's so expensive. Oh my God.
Okay.
Um, but also, I just often crave Western food since I'm
Yeah,
not at
yeah.
home getting my mum's cooking. So I love a good burger place or something like that. Yeah, certainly in my first 2 years, I was much more adventurous, but like I've tried it all now and I know what I like. So I'm much more boring these days.
Cool. Have you been able to make like many friends, I don't know, with Japanese people or mostly like
Ah, I see,
expats or
I see.
international people?
I initially made a lot of international friends purely because of my placement. As I said, I'm in a building with a lot of other ALTs, so we naturally gravitate towards each other. I do have some Japanese friends. Usually I meet them through dating apps. Because I also use those to make
Yeah.
friends, genuinely.
It
So
works.
there's
It works well. Like people have told me from other countries, like
yeah,
you're
I think it
traveling it
works.
works well.
For sure. I think it's good for making friends for
Yeah.
travelers, and also I think as well just in the gay world, because we always want to make friends with other gays when we
Yeah.
don't have any gay friends. So it's a lot
Yeah.
more common, I think, in that aspect to make friends through apps. So I do have a couple good Japanese friends. I wouldn't say I have a lot, certainly,
Mm,
but also I've just not put a huge amount of effort into that, to be honest.
yeah.
I'm the kind of person like I just need a few good friends. I don't need a lot of friends. Whereas I know people who like cannonballed headfirst into Japanese culture. They were not interested in making friends with the other foreigners. It certainly helps if you can speak Japanese a bit better. And yeah, those kinds of people go to all the language exchange events on like meetup and stuff. And yeah, and I think as well, if you're in a more rural placement with fewer foreigners, you're kind of forced to make Japanese friends. Not that you wouldn't want to, but it just kind of like that's the situation you're in. You're going to make Japanese friends because
Yeah.
you're not just going to sit at home all day and do nothing. Like people need friends.
Cool.
But yeah, I think it was pretty easy for me considering
Yeah,
the
yeah.
amount of people here and stuff.
And I was wondering, like, what is it like to be, I guess, like LGBT in Japan? Is it?
For me, it's the same.
Yeah.
for the most part, except dating's a bit harder because yeah. But I at work, if anyone ever asked me if I was gay or whatever, I would tell them. Like it's not a secret, but I don't advertise it. I don't go out of my
Yeah.
way to tell people. And although certainly certain teachers or students might suspect something, I know that some teachers are aware of my YouTube channel.
Mhm.
But no one's ever brought it up or anything. So I'm like, whatever. So it
Yeah.
doesn't affect work as far as I'm aware. I've never really had any homophobic experiences in Japan. I think as well, though, the international people I'm friends with are obviously a lot more accepting. And since I make mostly Japanese friends through the dating apps, it's like, yeah. So
Okay.
no bad experiences. It is a bit more difficult to date just because the cultural differences are really big between
Yeah.
Japan
Like
and the
what are
UK.
the biggest differences you've noticed? Everything.
um, in general or specific to dating?
Or maybe we can just do dating then. Is it
Uh,
like less forward, I guess? Like um
okay, here's one.
yeah.
So Japanese people are a lot more, sorry, Japanese gay people are a lot
Okay.
more easygoing about chilling in the closet their whole life.
Oh
They
yeah.
don't feel the need to come out to their family or to work or anything. Obviously, that's everyone's personal choice. I have no problem with that. But for me, if I'm gonna get into a relationship with someone, I want to be completely part of their life. I want to get to know their
Right, right.
family and their friends. I never want to pretend to be someone's friend in any given situation. I'm not down with that. So it's kind of really hard to find people that are fully open. It's quite subtle the difference is. It's just
Yeah.
they're thinking about a lot of stuff. Their perspective
Mm.
on things are very different. Their priorities can be quite different. But I think the few times I've met LGBT Japanese people kind of have a bit of a more Western mindset, I guess, who have traveled a bit and stuff. And the few times where I have kind of got any kind of feelings for people, usually in those cases, they want to leave Japan. The fact they have that Western mindset, it
Yeah.
doesn't fit with being LGBT in Japan.
Mhm.
So every time I've met someone like that, they have left to go on a working holiday or whatever, just
Right.
to kind of get away and go to a more accepting place,
Yeah.
which makes sense. So it's difficult for me to date here because either
Mhm.
it's someone I'm not going to mesh with or someone who doesn't want to still be here. In
Oh,
most cases, of course, it's not everyone, but
yeah.
yeah, so that just kind of makes it difficult.
I guess just finally, like what's next for you? Do you see yourself staying in Japan, or you go back to Scotland or move somewhere else?
Question causes me great pain and stress. I presumably I will go back to Scotland
Yeah.
unless another opportunity presents itself, which sounds really awesome and which I would be open to. Then I'm gonna go back to Scotland. I certainly miss my family and friends. I think if I was to live in another country next, other than the UK, I would want to go to an English speaking country. Like it's been fun in Japan, but I'm
Yeah.
kind of over this a little bit after like now in 4 years, especially with the pandemic, it's very routine all the time. But I have no idea what I'll do. I certainly my assumption is I'll start looking for jobs related to video. But again, I think coming to Japan, if it's taught me anything, it's that I need to be more open-minded about my future because before I came to Japan, I was very career oriented and
Hmm.
one very narrow path in my mind. And then coming here was so spontaneous. So now I'm going to be much more open to any opportunities that kind of I come across because who knows where it'll lead.
Yeah, I think it's always good to keep an open mind, you know. Never know
Yeah.
what's going to happen. So, yeah, that's all my questions. Thank you so much for taking the
Oh
time.
yeah. Thanks for having me.
No worries. I will leave all your links in the description so people can go
Super.
follow you. Do you have
Thank you very
Instagram or
much.
is it just
Yeah, I
YouTube?
have Instagram.
Yeah.
It's Kubzilla, Kubzilla.
Love it. Awesome. Yeah. Well, thanks so much. And yeah, have a good evening.
You too.
All right. Bye.
Bye.